the rest of the time. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, good. Yeah, get the login. We'll pay the bill. Okay, bye.
No, I'm not going to the store using a team spirit because I think
I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets as you enter the meeting room. The public and other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on agenda items under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes to speak has had a chance to speak to the subject. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room, identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. Our minute taker is participating remotely, so please make sure that your microphone is on so she'll be able to hear clearly as she does the minutes. We have a quorum, everybody's present, so item number 1. Mr. Embelard. Did you bring some ice with you?
I wish. Hi, I'm Mark Revillard, 64 Blackberry Lane in Keene. Thank you so much for seeing me today. The planning committee meeting was canceled yesterday, so I know you guys have made room on the docket for me. I'm here to represent the Keene Ice and Snow Festival on behalf of the Keene Downtown Group. The Keene Ice and Snow Festival, it's our 21st annual event to be held February 3rd which is a Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is a free, fun day for families. Every event that we have is completely free, and those events include things like a children's train. We're making 1,000 s'mores this year. Sugar on Snow, circus acts. The town graciously brings up the big snow machine from the airport for kids to do a touch-a-truck. There are free cartoons at the Colonial Theater this year. There are horse rides on the vacant lot that's down where Cobblestone used to be. And scavenger hunts and free hot cocoa and just all kinds of things. Oh, and of course 12 ice carvers competing in a competition with 600 pounds of ice that we put on pedestals that are lit from below and illuminate as long as they'll stand. Some years that's an hour, some years that's a couple days.
Great. Questions from the members of the committee? Anybody in the public wish to speak to this? Good for a motion, please.
I'm happy that this has become an annual tradition, because a lot of people get out to see it. Move to recommend that the Keene Downtown Group be granted a street fair license to use downtown city rights-of-way for purposes of conducting merchant sidewalk sales, as well as use of downtown city property on Central Square, Railroad Square, and designated parking spaces on Central Square and Main Street to conduct the Ice and Snow Festival on Saturday, February 3rd, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and reserving an inclement weather day of Sunday, February 4th, 2024. In addition, the applicant is permitted to close off a portion of Railroad Street from Main Street to the exit of the Wells Street parking garage. This permission is granted subject to the signing of a revocable license and indemnification agreement, submittal of a certificate of liability insurance in the amount of $1 million, listing the city of Keene as additional insured, submittal of signed letters of permission from the owner for any use of private property, and compliance with any recommendations of city staff. In addition, the petitioner is granted use of the requested parking spaces free of charge under the provision of the free parking policy. The petitioner agrees to absorb the cost of any city services over and above the amount of city funding allocated in the FYI '24 community events budget.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none. All those in favor? No one's opposed. It's unanimous. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, folks.
Captain.
Good evening. Steve Tenney from the Police Department. I have two items in front of you tonight. With the first one, I think, is the Homeland Security Grant. This is the 2024 Homeland Security Grant carve-out that I've been in front of you before. This is for our SWAT team. We're a member of the NHTOA, and pretty much annually, they give out a carve-out of monies to each team that's a member. This year, our amount is $5,142.41. With that money, we've identified a couple pieces of equipment that we can purchase, one being a new shield, ballistic shield, and the second one, more importantly, is a headset for our team leader, so he can communicate on two different channels. We currently don't have that ability, so it should help out quite a bit.
Thank you. Questions, members of the committee? Members of the public? Seeing none, it's your turn.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to apply for, accept, and expend the 2024 New Hampshire Department of Safety, State Homeland Security, NHTOA Team Allocation Grant in the amount of $5,142.41.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? No one's opposed, unanimous. Item 2.
All right, thank you. This one is a state highway safety grant. This one was actually found by our dispatch supervisor, thankfully. It's in the amount of up to $64,673.50. This grant, what it's used for is to upgrade our computer equipment in our cruisers, our mobile data terminals, the printers, docking stations, and mounting hardware. So pretty much everything we need to upgrade all our computer equipment in our cars. Our current computers were due to be replaced this year anyway, and were budgeted by our IT department. What this grant does is allows us to upgrade the other equipment that I mentioned, some of which is already broken. We have a couple docking stations that don't work, so we're using cigarette lighters and chargers that way to keep them charged. So this grant will replace that. It's a matching grant of 75% and 25% on us. And that 25% that we would have to match is well within the budgeted, what was already budgeted for the IT department. I should mention too, they worked with us on this. They've seen the demo and saw the equipment, and they're on board with it as well.
Questions, members of the committee? Seeing none. Anybody from the public? Your turn.
All right. Move to recommend the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and expend the FY24 New Hampshire Highway Safety Equipment Grant in the amount of $64,673.50.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? No one's opposed, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
You too. Jesse.
Good evening, counselors. I thought I'd bring my computer so I get all my facts straight. So the request here is to approve the city manager accepting an award. The Invest in H program, which started in 2021, included a unique program that sort of encouraged cities to approve affordable and workforce housing programs. It's called the Per Unit Grant Program. It's pretty simple. Every unit of affordable housing that gets built, we can request funds from the city from the state at a $10,000 per unit rate. So the developer at 310 Marlborough is including 15 affordable and workforce housing units in his development. The sort of innovative box on top of his existing structure, and as a result, we sought an award for $150,000, and we received word that the state had accepted that, and now it just goes to the Governor Executive Council to approve that finally. And to do that, I have to get authority for the city manager to sign that. So sort of a bunch of steps, but that's what I'm requesting tonight.
Thank you. Questions, members of the committee? Chris?
He talks about 51 housing units, and with 15 of them being affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea what the difference in the monthly rent between a normal one and an affordable housing classification?
I don't for this specific unit, no. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question on where would the money actually be going to? Is it going to the city, or would it then be going to the property owner to reimburse costs or debt that way?
It comes to the city. The property owner has actually taken advantage of a number of both Invest in H and other affordable and housing encouragement programs. So he's received quite a bit of funds, which he deserves. He's doing a great thing. But this would be just for the city, and I believe it goes to our general fund. That's my understanding.
Any other questions up here? Members of the public? If not,
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and expend the funds awarded to the city by Invest New Hampshire program of the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs as a result of development of 15 affordable housing units located at the Private House and Development at 310 Marlborough Street.
Second.
I'm going to ask that the motion be modified to strike expend. I should just get authorization to accept it in this motion, and if we wanted to expend it at some future point, I would need to come back to the council and ask for that permission. Right now, it would just go to the general fund and would be available.
I don't remember saying expend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to expand on that too, are there any restrictions on what we should be using those funds for?
go ahead.
I think what you're saying is both the second and the primary are friendly to that being removed from the motion?
Yes.
So, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Great. All right. Current and future state of cities' trees. Mr. Von Platsky.
Hello, I'm Sparky Von Plinsky from 18 Allen Court over by the hospital in Keene. I'm also chair of the Conservation Commission, and that's why I'm here tonight. Back in August, we had Court Blomquist come out and speak to us about the state of the city's trees, street and otherwise. And we had a great conversation with Court, and then from that, we put together the letter that we sent to council. In it, there are 5 bullets. I won't read them. You guys can read. But I did want to highlight a few things, and then certainly leave it open to questions if anybody had anything. So the first bullet seeks to conduct a tree inventory of street trees within the public right-of-way. It's my understanding that there's something similar happening within the the parks, so Dinsmore Wood, Robin Hood, Ladies Wildwood, and Wheelock Park. I'm not saying it's happening, but it's in the works. So we're just looking for something similar along the rest of the rights of way throughout the city. Second up was to allocate additional funding to the street tree program. So when we were talking with Court, and it was eye-opening to see the amount of money that's spent on trees and how far, and it's probably the wrong word, that money can go. So there is, according to our conversation with him, there's $5,000 in the budget designated for downtown-specific tree maintenance. That's not very much, but it's something, but it is earmarked specifically for the downtown area. Next up is there's $3,000 in the budget for the replacement of trees throughout the city. $3,000 will get you, according to Court and some very basic research, anywhere from 1 to maybe 5 trees, and that's a little bit generous. And you're looking at a tree that's about a 1.5 to 2 inch diameter, which is not guaranteed to survive it. When you go through the winter with plowing and salt and everything else. So it's not a very large sum, and I believe, and don't quote me on this, that amount hasn't changed in decades. So it might be time to revisit the spending that we do on those trees, because the trees are part of what makes Keene Keene. I was speaking to my brother on the way down. He lives in Savannah, and if you've ever been to Savannah, Georgia, it's tough to imagine the place without street trees, without the shade and the coolness that they provide, and it's very similar here in Keene. If it would be tragic to see us lose all our trees, and that's sort of what could be happening in the medium term. So the next up on the agenda was to look at a cost-sharing idea similar to what's been done in Manchester and in Nashua. I reached out to Nashua's Parks and Rec Department. I haven't heard back from them yet, but they have a program wherein a property owner puts forward a little bit of money, and then the city matches that to some extent. I don't know the exact details. That's why I reached out to them. But and that way, there's a little bit of buy-in from both parties, and it'll allow trees in places that will affect the street but aren't necessarily on city right-of-way. So you think about like going down Court Street or places like that. So that's something that I'd like to see the city do, or we as a commission would like to see the city look into, and we'd certainly be happy to take the lead on that if you so desired. The fourth bullet, speaking with Andy Bohannon earlier, and that's kind of covered in his parks funding idea. So I won't really get into that, but I do want to make sure that it's understood that a lot of the trees that were planted after the hurricane of '38 are reaching the end of their, I don't want to say they're reaching the end of their life, but it's getting more and more likely that there's going to be a collapse of those trees in any one spot, which would be very, very noticeable. And then finally, the last thing is just it's really a lot like the first bullet in that we'd like to see focus returned to these trees, and it's specifically native trees. It's one of those things that it's nice. You can walk down the street and most people wouldn't know if a tree was native or not, but it's actually very important that we keep New Hampshire's trees here in New Hampshire, and I think that's something that we would like to see happen. So just to wrap up, we're kind of speaking for a tree, so a tree isn't able to speak for itself. So we saw it necessary to speak for the trees, but also for the people of the town. It really makes a difference from a climate standpoint. It cools off the area beneath the tree to a not insignificant degree, and so we would like to partner with the council and in any way that we can. We have a lot of expertise on the commission, and so we'd like to see the street trees within the city become a priority. And with that, I'll put a bow on it.
Thank you. You have some other members of your committee with you. Do they wish to speak before we get discussing it?
I'll get it out of the way.
Thanks, Sparky. Bobby Williams, City Council Ward 2. I'm also the City Council member of the Conservation Commission. Just to say, a bit about why this is important. Living on the east side and hearing neighbors' concerns about the quality of our neighborhood, one of the things I've noticed is that our natural assets are kind of starting to fade too. We have some beautiful trees on the east side, but over the past few years, a storm comes through, oh, there goes another white pine, doesn't necessarily get replaced. If you look around, if you look up at the trees that we have, they're all quite a bit older. You don't see so many young and middle-aged trees, and we really need those younger and middle-aged trees to be able to be there to fill out the canopy for when our older trees start to disappear. This is an important thing for the environment in terms of attracting butterflies and bees, but also in terms of controlling runoff and flooding. These are really these are an infrastructure asset that's important to us. It's just a quality of life thing. I won't get too preachy about how important trees are. I think we understand that, but I will say that we do need to do a good job of taking care of them and looking to the future. Trees' lifespan is a long time, so we need to look pretty far into the future just to make sure that this resource remains available to future generations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Madison, Vice Chair, Keene Conservation Commission, Ward 3 City Councilor. Nice to be back. Nice to see you all again. So there's not much I can add to what Sparky and what Bobby has already said. I think they've put it very nicely. What I will do is offer my experience and my expertise as a hydrologist, is that street trees really do play a vital role in controlling runoff and controlling stormwater flow during major storm events. We're seeing a lot more of these major precipitation events more and more frequently each year. I mean, this past year was certainly no exception. I mean, we had a major rainstorm this last weekend. This summer, we had like 5 days where it didn't rain. So we saw a lot of precipitation. We saw a lot of rainfall. We saw a lot of runoff. And we saw our existing stormwater systems pretty stressed. If we lose a lot of trees, especially in the urban kind of core of Keene, we're going to see our stormwater systems more stressed, because they're receiving more precipitation, they're receiving more volume. By having street trees, by maintaining street trees, that gives a point for stormwater to infiltrate into the soil and for the trees to actually uptake water. The amount of water that an individual tree can uptake varies drastically from the species of tree to its age, to its health, but it can be close to 100 gallons at times, depending on the type of tree. So these resources really are important to our city. They provide an ecosystem service, which we can measure in a dollar amount. And I think that this is something we should do, and I think this is worthwhile for the city to do. Nice to see you all again.
Thank you. Louise?
No. I'm not a member of the committee, but I did come here to speak, okay?
You're welcome.
My name is Louise Zerba, and I live at 340 Paco Ave. And I'm here tonight as a member of the Keene Rotary Club, and to inform you all, and basically to just listen to the discussion that was occurring from the commission. Our club has established a new committee, a new service committee, and we're calling it the Green Up Committee. And looking at several possibilities, one of them being the planting of trees in the city, and perhaps replanting or planting new trees where some might have to be removed as a result of the, your infrastructure project in the downtown. And what we're hoping to do, still in the formative stages, is to develop a collaboration amongst all of the, the clubs in town and the schools. We've gathered support from Keene State so far, and the high school, and in particular also the commission as well as the city, to ask for their support and input in trying to put some type of a program together. And so I was asked, Peter Hansel is the chair, and because he couldn't be there tonight, tonight, he asked me if I would come in his stead. So I just wanted to inform you about what we're doing. We're considering all kinds of possibilities, but this is a big one. And again, I don't need to again mention the importance of trees in beautifying our city and keeping our tree city the wonderful one that it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if this is going to work with that, so patience. Good evening. My name's Peter Hartz, and I live at 12 Brook Street in the East End here. And I commend the commission for the letter that they've given you and the points that they raised, plus the Rotary Club, which is that's a wonderful initiative. I have a few things to add to it, which is that Keene has always thought of themselves as a tree city. There's a flag that flies on one of the flagstaffs downtown, and we no longer qualify as a tree city. That's an organization that has requirements, and we don't meet them, haven't met them in many years. However, there is already in place a organization that can help shepherd municipalities to do the sort of thing that we're talking about tonight. It's you can look it up online. It's pretty simple. One of the requirements, there are only 4, is that there be an active tree board or department. And there's some subpoints to that, which are easy enough to accomplish. There also needs to be a tree care ordinance, and there are examples of that in New Hampshire, I believe. And there has to be a community forestry program that also is funded by at least $2 per population. So if we estimate that Keene is 20,000 people, that'd be $40,000 in the tree budget. There also has to be an Arbor Day observance that's not tagged along with an Earth Day observance. And the meeting all these criteria enhances the ability to apply for funds through various government organizations, plus get urban and community forestry grants. Excuse me. Oh, there goes my hearing aid. So this shouldn't be like having to rewrite the book. There are cities that are tree cities, and we can follow their example. It's tremendously important. I think everybody loves trees. There's no doubt about that. And lastly, it does bring into mind the dilemma of what we're going to be experiencing downtown with the rebuilding. And I hope that when the plans do evolve and people can see them, that there's limited destruction of the urban canopy downtown. Those trees were planted well, what, maybe 40, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, I guess. And there was a design, an intentional landscape architectural design to those trees that were planted there. There were certain types, and since then, many have died or been replaced, but sort of willy-nilly. And I hope that when the new plans for downtown evolve, that there will be a professional landscape architect involved with that. It's important to choose the right varieties and to have the overall effect considered. As you know, when we go downtown in the spring, we get the beautiful white trees, and their Calgary pear, which many people don't like anymore because they have a weak branching system. But then later on, you get the ash and they have problems too now, but you have the golden leaves in the fall. Those things were all intentionally designed, and I'd like to make sure that that happens again. I look forward to helping whoever is going to be orchestrating this if it goes ahead. And it's going to be difficult because many of the streets, that, especially on the east side, don't have any public way. Roxbury Street's a good example of that. And the homeowners in the neighborhood are going to need to be educated and brought aboard in order to be able to plant enough trees on a street that it would make a difference, because there simply isn't, on many of the side streets too, there isn't a public way. The sidewalk abuts the street, as it does on my street. So a public-private coalition is going to be important. I thank you very much, and I hope this goes forward.
Thank you. You had some
I do,
additional
yeah.
information.
Do you want to talk, do you want to go first, Counselor?
It's all right. So I was confused by that because I'm pretty sure Chapter 82, we have an ordinance on trees.
We do, yes, we do.
The Conservation Commission, I believe, acts as the board
Yes, that's
associated with
correct,
that.
yeah.
And the part that I was actually raising my hand around is I see a forestry department with it's far more funded than what we're talking about. It's 54,000, not 5 and 3. So it is more than $2 per capita. It's 54,000 in the forestry department in Public Works,
Yes, that's correct.
which
So,
includes a $40,000 line for tree maintenance.
yes, that's correct. So if I can just add, so yes, Keene is a tree city and we meet all of those requirements. And in fact, we've been a tree city for 44 years, only beat by Durham, who's at 45 years. And I do have tonight in the audience Duncan Watson. I wanted him to speak a little bit about the effort that we are already undertaking related to getting an inventory of street trees. And then Andy is here. If you're interested, you will hear more about this on January 20th at your CIP workshop. But we do have a project in the capital plan that's being proposed for some forestry management related to our parks. And so this is all just good information for you to have. And at the end, I am interested to continue to expand this program. And we've talked about the operating budget and whether or not there needs to be more funds in that operating budget for replacement of trees and removal of dead trees, because that is quite expensive when we do that as well. And so if Duncan could come up and just talk a little bit about what we're already doing.
Good evening, Duncan Watson, Assistant Public Works Director, Solid Waste Manager for the city. I've been wanting to say this for a long time, and I've been waiting to use this arrow in my quiver, but court who? But I happen to know that he's out there in the ether because he's now texted me. And just make sure that the record is correct. The city has been a tree city for 41 years going, and we are being beaten by Durham by 1 year. But that said, honestly, we barely make it over the finish line to be a tree city. And in fairness, our city trees, in large part, are stressed and they're hurting. And we have basically, over the years, taken a mostly haphazard approach to tree planting, and we're mostly reactive. We actually spend the majority of our funds on tree care, not tree planting. And planting a tree is one thing, but the less sexy part of it is the tree maintenance part of it. But that's where the real money comes in. And when we know that what some of the problems are, we know that there's an emerald ash borer, the pine bark beetle, et cetera, et cetera. Andy will address some of this with some of his tree work. But the good news is that, not necessarily in response, but in conjunction with the meeting that Court held with the Conservation Commission, we're starting to address some of the issues that are identified here. We are actually actively ongoing and conducting an inventory of city trees. Now, there are city trees within the right-of-way. There also are city trees on private property. The policy sort of has been for years where if somebody, and this is many years ago, if somebody wanted a tree and we had a tree available, we would just drop it in there without much thought to putting in the monies necessary to maintain these trees for their lifespans. And a lot of these trees are getting to the end of their lifespans, and they're also being stressed by climate change and invasive species. So this tree inventory that we're doing is going to allow us to develop the processes and protocols, specifications necessary to actually have an active tree program. And our intention is to bring that forward through an operating budget submission, probably not this year because I don't believe the inventory will be done by that point. But we're going to be gathering together the necessary aspects of putting together an actual tree program. The city actually, since Court's departure, Court was the tree warden for the city. And we know we don't have a tree warden right now due to Court's departure, and that's something that we probably need to address as part of this process of conducting the tree inventory. And then allocating the additional funding for the city's existing street tree replacement program. Again, it's not just the replacement, it's also the maintenance of these trees. We recently, within the last 18 months, did a program where we treated some of the ash trees that were stressed due to the emerald ash borer. Some of the trees were too far gone for the treatment to be effective, but some of them seem to be stabilized a little bit. But I mean, this is just a literal drop in the bucket of the types of resources that are necessary to properly maintain these incredibly valuable assets. You've heard the reasons why. Public Works, certainly agrees that these are an important part of our infrastructure, and that some resources now need to be allocated to this in a purposeful way. And this tree inventory will allow us to move forward in a more purposeful way so that we can develop programs and manage not only tree planting but tree maintenance going forward.
Thank you. Members of the committee. Colonel?
Thank you. I heard a couple of things from different groups putting together. I really like the idea of the partnership because the city of Keene has worked really over the years, whether it's the dog park or the skate park or whatever, both the community and public funds. And I think that's important. And then we talk about who owns some of the trees. I live on Grove Street. I have 5 trees, 5 different species that are taller than my house, which is 2 stories. And I can tell you, we don't use air conditioning in the summer because once the trees get full bloom, it is great. Also, the trees block off the noise when people are racing down Grove Street. So it improves carbon reduction, it reduces noise coming to the house, it improves the quality of life. I have 2 trees, one a big tulip tree that's only 3 feet from the sidewalk. My house is non-conforming. My front steps are maybe 10 feet from the from the sidewalk, from the street. And so there's a whole bunch of issues, I think, as you brought up, need to be addressed so people would know the benefit of trees, how we can work together so we can put more trees, especially in Ward 1 and Ward 2, And if we're gonna go towards reducing our carbon footprint, the better the trees, the more it is. And if we don't have to use electricity or anything else to reduce our, as air conditioning, we need to do that, and we need to get more information out there to the people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the committee for bringing this forward. There's certainly a need for a number of these things in here. Maple Ave is going to look a lot different in just a few years. Those trees are definitely getting to the end of their life and are gonna. They've already started to come down. For those that have been working over at Wheelock Park and the disc golf course and the dog park, it's clear that those trees definitely need some. Definitely need some help there. So it'd be really good to see a good plan come out in the next couple of years for what we're going to be doing about that. The plan that Manchester has for their tree sharing seemed very reasonable. It was easy to find online. It's 50% share up to $800. They plant 25 to 30 a year, $24,000 a year budget for that at that rate. Seems very reasonable to me. I'd love for us to explore that further. Question for the city on the current inventory that we're doing. Do we have a general timeline for when that might be completed? And then a general idea for what that inventory, like maintaining that inventory would look like going forward?
I might ask Duncan to come back up and answer those questions.
Thank you for your question, Councilor. That's a great question. It'll probably be done sometime this spring, and we're putting it into our asset management system. And so that's how we're going to be managing our assets in the future, is using our Cartograph asset management system, because these trees are assets.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm really, really happy that Conservation Commission brought this forward. It was definitely on my list in terms of downtown and how we're going to be affected and what trees can we save and actually work around instead of remove. But on my street, just one block, 10 houses, we've lost 3 trees in the last 2 years. And a couple just recently bought, probably 6 months ago or less, a house across the street and had called Public Works, moving here from New York City and wanting trees back on the street and talking about all of the same benefits that we receive, as well as like cleansing our air. And then also on Washington Street, the city put in years ago, kind of like as a testing ground, some permeable sidewalk. So all of this water was going down through the sidewalk, and we lost a bunch of trees, like right near Franklin Elementary School. And the site, and I had brought it up at the time to that city manager and to Public Works. Nothing has changed, but I would love to see if we have to go back to whatever kind of sidewalk was there and replant some trees to invigorate that area again. Because I think there's a lot of pride in this community when it comes to the quality of life for us involves our relationship with nature, and having that integrated in our downtown and on our streets. And I think there's a lot of pride with it. And I know that this young couple that just moved here from New York City said they would be willing to pay for the trees. I mean, that's, you know, and when we redid Main Street back in the 80s, the community got together and raised over $300,000 for the trees that we have downtown now. So there's always been you know, that desire to invest, and I'm astounded to realize for the first time how little money we've allocated for trees, and I was disappointed. So I hope this is the, you know, the opportunity to change that direction. And thank you again to the Conservation Commission for bringing this forward.
Thank you, sir. Is that right, though? That's where I'm trying to understand, because I see so there's account number 523730 is tree planting. There's a 523720, which is tree maintenance, which is $40,000. Yeah. And that's where, so I understand that we only have $3,000 in that one account, but the overall program is far more substantial for that. I guess that's where I'm.
But does it get spent?
Yeah.
I can speak to that if you don't, and I can only speak to what Court told me, so. Sparky Von Plinsky again. So when Court came to us, there were the three numbers, and I apologize, I failed to mention the third number. So the 5,000 was specifically downtown, the 3,000 was for tree planting, and then the $40,000 he explained to us that was mostly reactionary tree maintenance, so dealing with trees falling, trees that are about to fall, that kind of thing. So it's not a proactive. The bulk of that money is not proactive at all. It seems to be very reactionary, and that was the big concern. I apologize, I missed that number when I was up here before.
No, that's really helpful, and it makes sense. And we actually overspent our budget 2 years ago. We spent more than was in there on that line.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, a lot of times we are removing trees and addressing problems as they arise, and that's difficult to predict and how much of that budget it will take, and then what we have left over to do anything proactive. But the great thing about this conversation tonight and the conversation that Court had with the Conservation Commission is we're treating it now like every other asset in the city. And if you remember, it was only 2 years ago we did this with sidewalks. We've done it with roads and we've done it with bridges, and then we moved to sidewalks, and now we're moving to trees. And that is looking at them, inventorying them, and coming up with a plan for replacement and maintenance. But the starting point is really inventorying them and then creating that plan. And so, as Duncan said, it'll take us a little time, but I think we are moving in the right direction.
I have a question for Duncan. So to get back to that area on Washington Street where the permeable sidewalk, it's on either side of the street, and we lost those trees, and it was way back because it was when John McLean was the city manager. And nothing ever got replanted there, which would mean that we'd have to probably change that experimental pieces of sidewalk in order for a tree to successfully thrive, right? I mean, how would you put that in? I mean, that's a different budget, right?
Well, I mean, there isn't a budget for that specifically, not that specifically, but I mean, a tree, you basically can take the tree canopy, whatever that tree canopy is, that's what's going on down below as well. So you need a proper growing medium in order to successfully plant a tree. This is some of the issues that we're having with some of the downtown trees, is that they're constricted to be able to grow. They're getting girding of the roots. And I would just make a quick aside saying that, I know that I'm participating in a lot of the downtown project work. Trees are front and center of a concern. Any tree that is healthy and can be saved will be saved, but there will be quite a few trees that are removed as part of the process, because when you start digging up the utilities, it's going to impact the tree. But that said, the idea would be to bring in a replacement tree that would be of suitable size to make it not like some sort of little twig that you have to wait 30 years to grow, but that would be a robust tree right from the beginning. But in answer to your question about the permeable sidewalk, the tree, normally what we do is when a tree comes down, we usually have the stump ground out, but then there might not be enough room within the right-of-way to put a tree replacement in that's an appropriate tree. And this is part of what we're doing with this inventory, is assessing what we have and then identifying what we need to go forward, and then coming forward with a proposal for a program to plant trees in addition to maintaining the trees.
So it'd be great if we have a program that, because I mean, I've seen these 3 trees come down and it's just this one block, and then nothing else goes up. The stumps are still there. And what's happened now is that green strip, which has also been part of our master plan, and, you know, having that aesthetic on the streets, it just becomes a place for cars to pull up and park and make it all mud. You know, now that the trees are gone. So like, I mean, it served a lot of purposes, and it helped to preserve that strip. But it's like, it doesn't seem like, given the fact that I've watched these trees come down one by one on both High Street and Washington, and years go by, and however many years ago John McLean was city manager, and nothing has been replaced. So it's like that program has to have something in there that addresses, you know, once a tree is removed, there's a plan in place and a budget in place to replace it.
I couldn't disagree with you at all. I mean, I believe you're absolutely on track here, and I think that's what we're trying to say tonight is that we hear that, we've been hearing that, and I think that we're going to respond to that in a way that's going to advance our tree program significantly from where it has been.
Thanks.
Duncan, that permeable sidewalk material is not necessarily a deterrent to trees, is it?
No, not at all.
But those 2 points that are being discussed now were part of the Washington Street reconstruction. That's when that went in, as well as those little rain gardens.
Right.
All working well, but was not in that project and should have been funded in that particular project. And every project we do, I think we'll do it in the future, is replacement of trees, because a lot of trees did have to come down through the reconstruction of Washington Street, and there were a number that were in real tough shape, so it was all done at the same time.
The trees are complementary to a permeable sidewalk as well as rain gardens.
My understanding from conversations back then was what was happening is the trees that were there were receiving too much water, and it was like drowning the roots because of those pieces of sidewalk. And it wasn't from, it was far after the construction. It was years after the construction that these trees had issues and struggled, so.
I find that difficult to believe, but that might be the case. But I mean, what I would say is that, you know, because of our tree program being somewhat haphazard, there hasn't been an appropriate evaluation of what kind of tree species should be planted where, and that's the goal of our program going forward, is to put the right tree in the right place so that the tree can thrive.
Thank you.
Move to recommend the report be accepted as informational and to direct the city manager to consider as part of the upcoming budget and capital planning process.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion up here? Seeing none, all those in favor? No one's opposed, it's unanimous. Thanks for all the work that's been done on this. You'll be having further discussions with us, I'm sure. Thank you. Last but not least,
I'll leave that last subject alone. Andy Bohannon, Parks Recreation Facilities Director. So before you tonight is a opportunity to do a cemetery's master plan, and this is something that the city has not done, and or at least I can't find, or I can find. And so, really, Monadnock View Cemetery is kind of basically the last real active cemetery. So we have a total of 9 cemeteries within the city. Some might say 8 if you don't include Woodland Northeast Division as its own cemetery. So, but anyway, so we're really looking at making sure that we plan for the future. We've expanded Monadnock View Cemetery is to the most that we can right now, and we're filling up fairly quickly, if you will. We still probably have, a few more years, obviously, to take care of everybody. But after that, we want to make sure that we are planning accordingly. And that front section of Monadnock View is our space for the future. So I suppose way out in the future, you have the public gardens, but that's, they're in really good shape right now. And there's some conduit out in the back, and that's why we're looking at putting the solar there. But, our immediate need is out in front. And this opportunity will be able to take this design and look at that and how do we maximize that for well into our future. It will also take a look at our bylaws and rules review just to make sure that we're kind of compliant with a lot of other communities our size. And, I think what we've been able to do is look at what other communities, this isn't something that is like commonly out there. It's not like a Parks and Rec master plan. It took a little while to find a blueprint for a cemetery's master plan. And talking with a few different communities, I was able to kind of get the right direction for us. We do have the funding available through the Cemetery Trust Fund B. So if you're not familiar with our trust fund for the cemeteries, you have an A and a B. And lot sales get split, and then one half goes into A and the other half goes into B. And we rarely use it, and so that is something that, this particular purpose it's designed for. And so as you can see in the memo, that, it's fairly healthy. And so this gives us the opportunity to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and then be able to have a blueprint to build out. So I have been to the trustees of trust funds last year, early in last year, in hopes that we were able to accomplish this before our previous superintendent retired, but wasn't the case. And so I'm going to give it another round. And once we get back into the flow, we're probably looking at like later in the summer that we would be back in front of you with a consultant, just to allow our current superintendent to, get his feet under him and have his first Memorial Day. So I don't want to put too much on his plate right away.
Comments, members of the committee? Public? So your analysis, will that be just Monadnock View, or are you gonna?
Just Monadnock View, yes. Yep. Yeah, so all of the, whether it be Woodland or Chase, which is North Cemetery up on Court Street, or out on Bradford Road, West Cemetery, all of those cemetery lots have been accounted for. They may not necessarily be full, but they're accounted for by families. So there's really no room to grow. Maybe a lot here or there, but I'm not going to bring a consultant in to identify a few lots here and there.
Move to authorize the expenditure of up to $65,000 in the Cemetery Trust Fund B capital reserves for professional services contract to create a master plan for Monadnock View Cemetery.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? No one's opposed, it's unanimous. Thank you, sir.
And we will be planting plenty of trees.
So this is up here, I'm gonna use it. We're adjourned.